You ever met someone and just knew they were destined for more? Like, you could see it in the way they carried themselves, even when the world tried to bury them in labels, dirt, and disrespect? That was Jordan Ellis. To most folks, he was just a black delivery driver, one of those guys hauling packages, smiling politely, blending into the background. But what they didn't see was the brilliance hiding behind that uniform. The story you're about to hear is the kind of story they try to silence, but we're bringing it to light. Because when they laughed at him, when they mocked him for being just the delivery guy, they had no idea who they were dealing with. They didn't know they were laughing at their future boss. Jordan woke up every morning at 4:30 a.m., laced up his steel-toe boots, and hit the road with a battered white van covered in grime and chipped paint. His uniform had faded from too many washes, and his route spanned the wealthiest part of the city, Upper Ridge. It was the kind of neighborhood where manicured lawns met cold stares, and the people greeted Amazon packages with more respect than the man delivering them. Still, Jordan smiled. Every day. Because he wasn't just stacking boxes, he was stacking dreams. See, Jordan had a vision. Between deliveries, during his lunch breaks, and in the stolen quiet moments between routes, he was building something. Not with hammers or nails, but with ideas, late-night coding sessions, and pages of business plans stored on a cracked second-hand laptop. But first, let's rewind. Jordan didn't always drive that van. He had been top of his class in high school, valedictorian in fact. He had a full-ride scholarship to a top university, majoring in software engineering. But 3 months into his freshman year, his mom, Teresa, suffered a massive stroke. Bills piled up. Insurance denied coverage. Jordan didn't hesitate. He dropped everything, came home, and started working whatever jobs he could find to support her care. The fancy dorm room and student ID gave way to warehouse shifts and delivery routes. He didn't complain. He hustled. Every night, he'd stay up teaching himself advanced programming, building apps, reading business books, sketching ideas. He had no investors, no mentors, and no safety net. Just raw ambition. The kind you can't teach. But Upper Ridge didn't care about any of that. To the residents of 8th Avenue North, where the mansions looked like museums and the driveways curled like serpents, Jordan was invisible. Or worse, he was a joke. Especially to one man, Brent Calloway, the regional director of Radley Technologies. Tall, smug, and sharp-suited, Brent was everything Jordan was not, at least on the surface. Brent had a tech degree, a silver Tesla, and the respect of his peers. But he also had something else, a superiority complex. Every time Jordan delivered to the Radley building, Brent made sure to throw a jab. Didn't know FedEx started offering business advice, he'd smirk. Or, don't scratch the marble floors, delivery boy. His coworkers laughed. Loud. And Jordan? He just smiled and said, "Have a great day, sir." What they didn't know was that the package Jordan dropped off every week wasn't just a delivery, it was research. Inside that building, Radley was using outdated logistics software that was bleeding money. Jordan knew. He saw the inefficient routes, the messy scheduling, the lag between order intake and dispatch. He saw it all, and he was quietly building something better. His app, swiftpath, was designed to optimize last-mile delivery in real time, cutting costs and boosting driver efficiency. He'd been testing it in secret for months, using his own routes as data points. It was sleek, intuitive, and powerful. But no one would fund it. He'd pitched to 4 investors, all of whom nodded politely, told him to get a co-founder, and ghosted him within days. One even said, "It's a great idea, but we're not sure you're the right face to lead it." Translation, "You're black and you drive a van." Still, Jordan kept grinding. Then came the day everything changed. It was a scorching July afternoon, and Jordan had a double shift. He was running behind, soaked in sweat, muscles aching. He pulled into the Radley loading dock and walked up the steps carrying a heavy box. As he reached the glass entrance, Brent was already waiting. This time he had a full audience. "You again?" Brent sneered. "How many packages you gotta drop off before you finally get a real job?" His coworkers laughed, some recording on their phones. Jordan kept his cool. "Just doing my job, sir." But as he turned to leave, Brent added, "Maybe one day you can intern for me. I'm sure you'd look good in a suit, polishing my shoes." The crowd roared. Jordan stood still for a moment, the box in his hands trembling slightly. Then he turned around, locked eyes with Brent, and smiled. "Maybe one day. Who knows? You might be working for me." Laughter exploded behind him. One of Brent's boys muttered, "Delusional." Another said, "Bro thinks he's Steve Jobs." Jordan walked away without another word. That night, something inside him snapped. Not in anger, but in urgency. He called up an old friend from high school, Malik Carter, now a UX designer at a growing startup, and asked for a favor. "I've got the engine," Jordan said. "I just need the body." Malik agreed. For the next 2 months, Jordan worked delivery shifts by day and built swiftpath by night. Malik refined the UI. Jordan lined up beta testers from other delivery drivers. And then came the break he needed, a startup pitch competition hosted by the Urban Innovation Alliance. The prize? $50,000 in seed funding and direct mentorship from venture capital firms. Jordan applied. And a week later he got the email, "Congratulations. You've been selected to present." He had 1 month to prepare. While most contestants had co-founders, lawyers, and decked-out presentations, Jordan had a thrift store suit, a borrowed clicker, and a pitch that came from the soul. When he took the stage at the event, nervous but steady, he didn't open with tech jargon. He told them his story. His mother. The stroke. The grind. The van. And how swiftpath was more than an app. It was a revolution built by someone who lived the inefficiency every single day. The room went quiet. And then applause. 3 judges approached him after the event with business cards. One, a black angel investor named Patrice Langston, pulled him aside and said, "Son, I've been waiting for a founder like you." 2 months later, Jordan closed a pre-seed round of $200,000. Swiftpath was live in beta across 2 cities. By the end of the year, a major regional distributor signed a licensing deal. Jordan used part of the funds to hire full-time developers and open a small downtown office. The rest? He invested back into drivers, offering them better rates, flexible scheduling, and performance bonuses. Meanwhile, across town, Radley Technologies was falling apart. Poor software. High turnover. Customer complaints. The board started looking for solutions. At a tech expo that spring, Brent and his team walked past a crowded booth. There it was, Swiftpath, with a sleek banner and a demo screen showing flawless route optimization. Brent paused, staring at the founder's name, Jordan Ellis, CEO and founder. He turned pale. Later that week, Radley's board contacted Swiftpath for a licensing proposal. They wanted access. A meeting was arranged. Brent walked into the room wearing a nervous smile. And sitting at the head of the table in a tailored navy suit, was Jordan. Jordan didn't smile. Brent sat down and tried to speak. "Mr. Ellis, it's great to see you again." Jordan leaned forward. "I remember you. You asked if I'd polish your shoes." Brent's face flushed. "That was unprofessional." Jordan raised a hand. "We're not here for apologies. We're here for solutions." He slid a contract across the table. "Here's our licensing fee. And you'll report to my COO moving forward." Brent blinked. "Excuse me?" Jordan smiled coldly. "That's right. From today on, Swiftpath owns Radley's last mile logistics. You'll be using our tools. You'll be under our compliance. And yes, technically I sign your checks." Brent sat back stunned. His mouth moved but no words came out. Jordan stood, adjusted his cufflinks and turned to walk away. But just before he exited the room he stopped and said, "Funny how life delivers, huh?" And just when it seemed like that was the triumphant end of the story, something unexpected happened. That night as Jordan left the office, a sleek black car pulled up outside. The window rolled down. Inside sat a sharply dressed man with a gold ring on his finger and a calm smile. "You've made some noise, Mr. Ellis," the man said. "I represent a group very interested in what you're building. But you're making enemies you don't see coming. And some of them don't like sharing power." Jordan frowned. "Who are you?" The man handed him a card. On it was a symbol Jordan had seen before, but only on the backroom walls of shady warehouses he'd delivered to. It was the emblem of a powerful tech cartel known for burying startups. And now, they were coming for him. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. Jordan stood frozen on the sidewalk, the crisp business card in his hand feeling heavier than it should. The emblem on it, a minimalist symbol of 2 intertwined snakes forming an infinity loop, wasn't listed online, didn't belong to any corporation on paper, and couldn't be tied to a legitimate business. But Jordan had seen that mark before. Once in a late-night delivery to an industrial facility that looked more like a fortress than a warehouse. Another time in a back-alley conversation between a frightened vendor and a slick-suited man who noticed Jordan and abruptly ended the meeting. This wasn't some startup syndicate. This was the shadow side of tech. A secretive alliance of billion-dollar firms and underground investors that controlled patents, crushed competition, and buried disruptive innovation before it ever saw the light of day. And now they knew Jordan's name. The man in the black car, he never gave a name, never asked questions. He just smiled and said, "We're watching. Be careful who you embarrass. There are people who'd rather keep the system broken than let someone like you fix it." Then the window rolled up and the car disappeared into the night. Jordan didn't sleep that night. Not out of fear but strategy. He was smart enough to know that he'd just crossed into dangerous territory. Swiftpath was growing. Its user base had tripled in the last 3 months. Small delivery companies across the Southeast were dumping Radley's outdated system and signing on with Jordan's platform. And now Radley was bleeding. Brent Calloway had been quietly demoted. The board was shifting. But the exposure had also made Jordan a target. Because he wasn't just successful, he was disruptive. And black. And unapologetic. The next morning he called a meeting with his small but tight-knit leadership team. Malik Carter, head of design, Liana Reyes, COO and Jordan's childhood friend from church, and Ellis Chong, CTO and Swiftpath's first engineer. "We just made enemies," Jordan told them flatly. "Serious ones." He laid the card on the table. Ellis squinted. "I've seen that symbol on encrypted forums. People call them the Circle. They invest in companies, buy their competition quietly, and if they can't control them, they destroy them." Malik looked at Jordan. "So what now? We go into hiding?" Jordan leaned forward. "No. We level up." Over the next month, Swiftpath went into stealth mode. Public communications were dialed back. The marketing budget was reallocated to security upgrades. Liana brought in ethical hackers to run penetration tests. Every line of code was reviewed. Internal communication was encrypted. They turned their modest office into a digital fortress. Jordan personally invested in cybersecurity training for the entire staff, because this wasn't just about software anymore. It was war. But the attack started anyway. First, one of Swiftpath's main cloud providers dropped them suddenly, citing contractual irregularities. Then their email servers were flooded with spam from botnets registered in untraceable regions. Next, anonymous articles began surfacing on business blogs, smearing Jordan's background, questioning his credentials, and claiming he stole Swiftpath's algorithm from his former employer. One particularly venomous piece ended with, "Is America ready to trust its logistics to a guy who used to deliver boxes?" Jordan's phone lit up with messages. Investors wanted answers. Some early adopters panicked. A few partnerships wavered. But Jordan? He didn't flinch. He called a press conference. Wearing a charcoal gray suit and standing beneath a banner that read "Built from the ground up," he faced the cameras head-on. "Yes, I was a delivery guy. Yes, I built this company in borrowed clothes, coding at night while my mother fought for her life. And yes, I'm black. None of those things make me unqualified. They make me prepared. Swiftpath is here to stay. And no amount of smear campaigns or corporate intimidation will stop us." The speech went viral. Media outlets picked it up. Social media erupted with hashtags. #built from the ground up, #Black Tech Matters, and #Jordan Ellis. Celebrities reposted his story. Tech insiders whispered that Jordan had become too visible to silence. And still, the circle kept coming. That weekend, Malik's laptop was hacked remotely. Their beta server data was nearly wiped, but Ellis had backups in cold storage. Then Liana received an unmarked package at her home. Inside, a single flash drive and a typed note, "Play this before you trust your CEO." She plugged it in and what she saw made her gasp. It was a video. A grainy security feed, dated 3 years ago, showing Jordan inside a warehouse at 2:16 a.m. He appeared to be swapping out parts in the back of a server rack. A timestamp. A security breach alert. And a close-up of Jordan's face looking toward the camera. Liana confronted him. "Jordan, what is this?" Jordan stared at the screen. "That's fake." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. I've never even been in that building." Ellis verified the metadata. It had been altered, cleverly but not perfectly. A deep fake laced with just enough real footage to pass casual inspection. But now it was clear, the circle was trying to fracture his own team. "I need you to believe me," Jordan said, looking directly at Liana. She paused, then nodded. "I do. But we need to go on the offensive." So that's exactly what they did. Ellis hacked into dark web forums and began tracking the origin of the smear campaigns. Malik worked on rebranding swiftpath's image as a story of resilience and grassroots genius. Liana reached out to other Black founders and built a coalition, Tech-Rooted, a network of minority-led startups pooling resources and forming a digital alliance. Then, in a bold move, Jordan announced a new partnership live on LinkedIn. Swiftpath was acquiring one of Radley's former clients, and would now be delivering logistics to over 2,000 grocery stores across the South. The move put Swiftpath on track for $8 million in projected revenue. It also made the circle furious. A week later, Jordan received a message on his encrypted Signal line. It was a video. A live feed. His mother, Teresa, sitting alone in her assisted living apartment reading a book. The message? "Back off or the past you buried will resurface, with fire." Jordan stood still, heart racing. This wasn't business anymore. This was personal. And just then, Liana rushed in holding a printed email. "Jordan, you need to see this. We've been infiltrated." He took the paper. It was an email between two employees. One of them, a new hire, had been forwarding confidential Swiftpath source code to an external server for weeks. "Who is it?" Jordan asked, voice low. Liana looked up, her expression dark. "It's Brent Calloway. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths." Brent Calloway. Jordan stared at the name on the printed email in disbelief. It wasn't just betrayal, it was war. Brent, the smug Radley executive who once laughed at him like he was a joke, had quietly embedded himself back into Jordan's world as a mole. He'd applied under a fake name, joined Swiftpath as a freelance logistics consultant during their hiring expansion, and had been siphoning source code, API structures, and client intel to an external server, owned by a shell corporation. And now it made sense. The cyber attacks, the smears, the near-surgical sabotage attempts. They were coordinated from within. Jordan felt the heat rush through his chest, but he didn't explode. He didn't panic. He did what he'd always done, focused. "Shut him down," he told Ellis. "Now." Ellis was already typing commands. "I'm locking out his credentials, isolating his workstation, and tracing all outbound server traffic." Liana leaned in. "Should we alert legal?" Jordan's jaw clenched. "Yes, but not before we play our move. I want him to know who he messed with." They traced the IP addresses Brent had been using. Turns out he wasn't working alone. There were 2 additional internal logins attached to the data breach, and one of them came from a staff member Jordan had personally interviewed, Nico Bell, a junior developer who had begged for a second chance after being laid off during the pandemic. Jordan had taken a chance on him. Given him not just a job but purpose. And now Nico had sold him out. Jordan sat in the conference room, silent, watching as security escorted both Nico and Brent, now exposed and stunned, out of the building. Brent didn't say a word. He kept his eyes down, but his face told a different story. Arrogant. Undeterred. Like he knew this wasn't over. Liana spoke. "We should file charges. Corporate espionage. Data theft." Jordan nodded. "We will. But first, let's take the air out of their lungs." By the end of that week, Jordan called a press conference. This time not to defend himself, but to reveal. On national broadcast, he played security footage showing Brent accessing restricted servers under a false name. He laid out the data flow patterns, the evidence of intellectual property theft, and the cyber trail leading straight to the Circle's shell accounts. He didn't say their name, but he didn't have to. Everyone watching knew. And then came the kicker. "We're open-sourcing Swiftpath Core 1.0, Jordan said, staring directly into the cameras. "If you steal from us, we innovate faster. If you come for us, we rise higher. This platform is for the people now. For every last-mile driver, warehouse team, logistics hustler who gets treated like an afterthought, we're putting power back in your hands." The tech world exploded. Overnight, Swiftpath became more than a company, it became a movement. Thousands of developers began contributing to the open-source platform. Jordan was invited to speak on major networks. Swiftpath's app downloads tripled. Legacy competitors scrambled. One headline read, "From delivery van to industry disruptor, Jordan Ellis is the future of logistics." But Brent wasn't done. Weeks passed. Swiftpath expanded rapidly into 3 new regions. New partnerships rolled in: healthcare logistics, school lunch distribution, even disaster relief coordination. Jordan barely slept, moving from pitch meetings to engineering reviews to media appearances. But somewhere deep in his gut, he knew Brent wasn't gone. And he was right. One Thursday morning, as Ellis walked into the office, pale and shaking, he handed Jordan a folder. "We've been compromised," he said. "Again?" "No. It's worse." Jordan opened the folder. Inside were screenshots of a new company, one that had quietly launched a competing logistics platform using near-identical software. The interface was Swiftpath with a different skin. The structure, the API, even the user dashboard, all ripped straight from Jordan's code. But this time, it had government contracts. "Who's behind it?" Jordan asked. Ellis answered quietly. "Brent. And someone bigger. A tech billionaire named Curtis Vane. He's the money behind the shell. He's part of the circle." Curtis Vane. Founder of Vane Logic. Multi-billionaire. Known for eating competitors alive. Famous for aggressive acquisitions and hard resets of companies he bought, meaning he gutted them, stole their tech, and laid everyone off. And now, he had weaponized Brent's betrayal to build a clone of Swiftpath and lock Jordan out of critical government deals. Liana burst into the room with her phone in hand. "Jordan, we just lost 2 contracts. They're moving to the new company. Effective immediately." Malik walked in seconds later, holding a laptop. "Bro, check this." He flipped it open and showed the App Store. The Swiftpath clone was listed above theirs. Same functions. Same UI. Only a different logo. OptiDrive, powered by Vane Logic. Jordan sat down slowly. His mind raced. They weren't just copying him. They were erasing him. He stared out the window, watching a delivery van pass on the street. And for the first time in years, he felt that same feeling he had when he dropped out of college to take care of his mom. Alone. Undervalued. Targeted. But then his phone buzzed. A text from his mother's caregiver. "Your mom watched your interview again. She said she's proud of you. And she said, don't let the snakes stop you." Jordan stood up. "No," he whispered. "Not this time." He called his team back into the room. "This isn't just business anymore. This is a takeover attempt. So we treat it like one. We go after the patents. We go after the code. We expose every backroom deal. Curtis Vane wants a war." He looked at each of them, fire in his eyes. "We bring him one." That night, Jordan received an anonymous package. Inside, a hard drive, a burner phone, and a typed note. "We're on your side. But we can't help in the open. Plug in the drive. Follow the coordinates. You have 24 hours. Trust no one. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths." Jordan Ellis sat at his desk staring at the unmarked hard drive and burner phone like they were time bombs. Outside his office window, the city pulsed with its usual rhythm. Cars honking, bikes whirring past, people rushing through crosswalks. But inside Swiftpath headquarters, the tension was heavy, the air electric. Jordan knew what this meant. Someone inside the circle, maybe even someone deep inside Curtis Vane's empire, had decided to flip. Someone was risking everything to send him this drive. But why now? Why him? Why this moment? He plugged the hard drive into an isolated machine, air-gapped from the rest of their network. Ellis hovered close, running firewall scripts in real time while Malik and Liana leaned in over his shoulder. A folder auto-opened. Inside, dozens of documents, internal memos, audio files, and, most damning, a full project brief for OptiDrive, complete with metadata showing stolen code traces lifted directly from Swiftpath's servers. The timestamps matched Brent Calloway's internal activity logs. Worse, there were emails between Brent and Curtis Vane's CTO, boasting about how easy it had been to rip off the delivery guy, and how no one will believe a tech underdog with no pedigree when we roll this out globally. Jordan's fists clenched. They were planning this from the beginning. But that wasn't all. There was also an encrypted file labeled Project Underpass with a message, "Decryption key available on site. Coordinates embedded." He tapped the burner phone and found a single text, a GPS pin, just outside the city in a dusty warehouse district Jordan used to deliver to years ago. He recognized it immediately. "That's the old Berkeley hub," he whispered. "It's been shut down for years." "You're not going alone," Liana said firmly. "I have to," Jordan replied. "If this is real, it might be the key to taking Vane down legally. I can't risk the team." Later that night, under a moonless sky, Jordan parked outside the abandoned Berkeley logistics hub. The air was thick with the smell of rust and concrete. He stepped out, flashlight in hand, every nerve in his body on high alert. The warehouse loomed like a steel giant, quiet but not quite empty. A motion sensor flicked on in the corner. Jordan walked cautiously through the side door and followed the crude arrows someone had spray-painted along the cracked concrete floor. Then he found it. A metal lockbox, zip-tied to a rusted pipe with a small LED blinking on top. He pried it open. Inside, a tablet preloaded with a secure program that decrypted the final file. The screen flickered to life and played a video. What Jordan saw made his stomach twist. It was surveillance footage, recorded without consent, of Curtis Vane, Brent Calloway, and 3 other men inside a luxury boardroom. On the screen, Curtis raised a glass and said, "Swiftpath was a beautiful prototype. I'll give Jordan that. But we don't need him, we need the model. Once the clone rolls out, he'll be drowned in legal fees. Then we'll buy the ashes. That's how you clean the industry." Another man added, "Should we be worried about exposure?" Vane smirked. "The boys got grit, but no one has the firepower to go toe-to-toe with us legally. We own the regulators. We control the courts." Jordan closed his eyes. This wasn't just corporate theft, it was a full-blown conspiracy to destroy him and take over the entire logistics software sector. The kind of scheme that buried startups, erased minority-led innovation, and handed the future to billionaires who played dirty and smiled while doing it. He took the tablet and drove back to headquarters at full speed. The next morning, Jordan called a private emergency meeting with the Swiftpath board. Only the most trusted allies were invited, including a new contact he had brought in after Part 3, Angela Reddick, a civil rights attorney and whistleblower protection expert who had helped take down corrupt banking execs a few years earlier. After reviewing the footage and files, Angela leaned back and said, "This is the smoking gun. But you need to act fast. Once they smell blood, they'll burn the evidence and claim it never existed." Jordan nodded. "So we go public. Again. But this time it wouldn't be a speech. It would be a lawsuit. Federal. Backed by ironclad evidence. Names named. Crimes exposed." While Angela worked on legal filings, Jordan and Liana coordinated a press campaign. They created a public Git repository showing code comparisons between Swiftpath and OptiDrive. They lined up interviews with former Radley engineers who'd witnessed Brent's shady tactics. They released a short video titled "From the Delivery Van to the Boardroom: The Truth About Swiftpath," which trended on every major platform within hours. Curtis Vane responded exactly as expected. A countersuit. Claims of defamation. Public denials. But Jordan was ready. He had already sent copies of the encrypted files to 4 different journalists, 3 investor watchdog groups, and a tech whistleblower organization. By the time Vane's PR machine tried to spin the story, the public had already seen the truth. Protests erupted at VaneLogic's corporate campuses. Multiple VC firms pulled out of OptiDrive's upcoming Series B funding round. And then came the real hammer. The Department of Justice opened a formal investigation into VaneLogic and its connections to the Circle. But just as Jordan finally exhaled, thinking maybe, just maybe, it was over, an explosion rocked the parking lot of Swiftpath HQ. Glass shattered. Alarms screamed. Staff ran for cover. Jordan sprinted down the stairs 2 at a time, smoke rising from a burning van just outside the loading dock. No one was hurt. But that wasn't the point. Inside the smoldering shell of the van was a printed photo of Jordan, Liana, Malik, and his mother. A red circle drawn around Jordan's face. The message on the windshield? "We warned you. The circle never folds." Jordan stood in the smoke, heart pounding, jaw set like stone. Angela stepped beside him, her voice steady. "We just entered the endgame." Jordan nodded, staring out into the night. "Then let's finish this. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths." Smoke still lingered in the air as Jordan Ellis stood in the swiftpath parking lot, staring at the burned-out van and the threatening photo left behind. The circle had sent a clear message: back down or be destroyed. But what they didn't know was that Jordan had already been to rock bottom, and he didn't fear fire anymore. He had walked through it. He had built his company from concrete floors and cold mornings. And now he was ready to finish this fight, for every underdog who'd ever been laughed at, dismissed, or underestimated. For every black innovator who had their ideas stolen and their names erased. This time, history would be written differently. The next 72 hours moved like a war plan. Angela Reddick filed a federal whistleblower suit on behalf of swiftpath against VayneLogic and Brent Callaway. The Department of Justice, now with concrete video and metadata evidence, expanded its investigation. Multiple senators demanded public hearings on tech corruption and monopolistic practices. Swiftpath launched a public safety statement, condemning the attack outside their headquarters and publishing security camera footage showing an unmarked SUV dropping off the burning van hours before dawn. Then the unexpected happened. A second whistleblower came forward. This time from inside the circle itself. A man named Julian Kravitz, a disgraced former consultant turned data analyst who had been cast out for objecting to Vayne's aggressive moves. He had receipts, secret emails, wire transfers, audio recordings of meetings discussing plans to intimidate Jordan, manipulate public narratives, and discredit swiftpath's leadership through misinformation campaigns. He turned it all over to Angela, under protection. Now the dominoes began to fall. On the day of the congressional tech hearing, Jordan arrived not in a hoodie or a delivery uniform, but in a perfectly tailored navy suit, walking with Angela and Liana beside him. Reporters flooded him with questions. Is it true the circle tried to erase your company? Do you believe Curtis Vayne will go to prison? What message do you have for young black entrepreneurs? Jordan paused, adjusted his collar, and looked straight into the cameras. Don't let them shame you for starting small. They laughed at me because I delivered boxes. Now I deliver impact. This isn't just about me. This is about justice, for all of us. Inside the hearing, Jordan testified for 2 hours. He laid bare the systemic barriers black founders face. The silent sabotage. The patronizing investors. The way doors slammed shut no matter how solid the pitch. Then he exposed what Vayne and the circle had done, how they built their empire not on innovation but on theft and control. The room was silent as he concluded. Across the aisle, Curtis Vayne sat tight-lipped, flanked by a fleet of lawyers. Brent Callaway was nowhere to be seen. His warrant had been served the night before. The next morning, headlines screamed. Billion-dollar tech giant exposed an espionage plot against black founder. Delivery driver turned CEO brings down corrupt syndicate. Public sentiment exploded in Jordan's favor. A new wave of venture firms, including black-led funds, flooded swiftpath with investment offers. Tech magazines renamed Jordan, the people's CEO. Swiftpath's valuation doubled within 30 days, and Jordan announced the launch of SwiftRoot Incubator, a startup accelerator for marginalized founders who'd been overlooked by the system just like he once was. But Curtis Vayne? He wasn't done. Weeks later, just as Jordan was preparing to announce a massive federal contract win for swiftpath, a reporter leaked a memo. VayneLogic was trying to spin off their stolen OptiDrive platform into a new shell company overseas, beyond U.S. jurisdiction. Jordan gathered his team. We could let them run, Malik said. Claim victory and move on. No, Jordan said. They'll do it to someone else. They'll bury the next me. And so, Jordan flew to Geneva, Switzerland, where the Global Tech Governance Council was hosting an emergency summit on cross-border patent theft and anti-competitive behavior. There, before leaders from more than 30 nations, Jordan presented Project Underpass, the entire digital paper trail showing how the circle had violated international IP laws. By the end of that summit, VayneLogic's overseas expansion was blocked, and a multi-continent task force was formed to investigate tech monopolies. Jordan flew home a hero. Back in his old neighborhood, the kids who once watched him carry boxes through cracked sidewalks now watched his story in classrooms and tech hubs. Murals were painted. Scholarships were named. Jordan Ellis Way was unveiled at the same intersection where he used to park his van. And then came the moment that brought him full circle. He was invited to speak at Upper Ridge High, the wealthy private school where Brent Callaway's nephew now attended. Jordan walked in wearing a simple black sweater and jeans. He stood before a crowd of elite students, many of whom still lived in gated privilege, and said, "I used to deliver here. Right up the hill. I remember being laughed at, ignored. I remember one man saying I'd never be anything more than the help. And maybe I was delivering packages, but I was also delivering purpose. And now, I sign the checks of the very people who doubted me. So don't ever judge someone's future by the uniform they wear today." The auditorium stood in silence, then erupted in applause. Back at Swiftpath HQ, Jordan sat in his office looking out at the skyline. A knock on the door. It was Liana. "We just got approved," she said. "The federal contract is locked. Swiftpath will now handle emergency logistics for disaster relief across 15 states. Jordan smiled, a quiet, fulfilled smile. Not because of the money, but because he'd turned pain into power. And finally he had won. Never underestimate the quiet ones. The world laughed at Jordan because of what he did, but they had no idea who he was. They mocked his job without understanding his journey. But Jordan Ellis turned every insult into innovation. Every rejection into redirection. He didn't just prove them wrong, he built something right. Backhand index pointing right, medium dark skin tone. The lesson? Greatness doesn't always show up wearing a suit. Sometimes it wears a delivery uniform, keeps its head down, and builds in silence, until the day it signs your paycheck. The end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths.